Imagine a quiet Texas morning. The sun rises over Austin, but inside one hospital room, the air is electric with anticipation. Cameras wait outside, doctors pace the halls, and two parents, Ethan and Casey Jones, brace for the moment that will forever change their lives. Not one baby, not two, not even three, but five. Five tiny lives about to burst into the world all at once. In 2009, America fell in love with the miracle known as Quints by surprise. Viewers watched the Jones family try to balance bottles, diapers, sleepless nights, and the overwhelming chaos of raising quintuplets while also nurturing their eldest daughter, Eliot. For 3 seasons on TLC, it was laughter, messes, meltdowns, and tender moments rolled into one unforgettable reality series. And then, suddenly, the cameras stopped rolling. The show faded from television screens, leaving fans with one pressing question. What happened to the Jones family? Did the weight of raising 6 children tear them apart? Did the spotlight overwhelm them? Or did they quietly step away, choosing a different kind of life far from vain? What we discovered is a story more powerful than any reality show could capture. A journey of identity, resilience, and love. And today, you'll see just how much those 5 little miracles and the family who raised them have transformed in ways that will truly surprise you. Stay with us. Long before the world knew their names, Ethan and Casey Jones were simply high school sweethearts from Denton, Texas. They met as teenagers, bonded over faith, family values, and the kind of small-town dreams that don't often make headlines. Their story began with the quiet promises of young love, promises that, over time, would be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. By the late 1990s, Ethan and Casey had built a foundation together. They married in 1999, eager to start a family. But almost immediately, life threw them an unexpected challenge. They struggled with infertility, a road that brought years of doctor's appointments, disappointments, and a lingering question of whether their dream of becoming parents would ever come true. Hope finally arrived in 2004 when Casey gave birth to their first daughter, Eliot McKenna. She was their miracle baby, a little girl with big eyes and a curious spirit. For a time, Eliot was the center of their world, the long-awaited child who seemed to fill every gap in their hearts. But Ethan and Casey still dreamed of giving her a sibling, and so they tried again. This time, they pursued fertility treatments, including intrauterine insemination, never expecting the odds to tilt so dramatically in their favor. At first, the sonogram showed 6 tiny heartbeats. Doctors braced them for complications, warning that it would be nearly impossible to carry so many babies safely to term. And in fact, one of the pregnancies didn't progress, but 5 remained. 5 tiny flickers on a screen that would become the center of the Joneses' lives. The news spread quickly among family and friends, bringing equal parts excitement and fear. How would 2 ordinary parents handle the extraordinary task of raising 5 newborns, on top of caring for a toddler? The question loomed heavy, yet Ethan and Casey leaned on their faith and each other, determined to face the storm together. January 16th, 2009 became the day that forever defined the Jones family. In a high-risk delivery that drew in a team of doctors and nurses, Casey gave birth to the quintuplets: Brooklyn Faith, Britton Grace, Jack William, Leela Addison, and Ryan Elizabeth. Each baby was tiny, fragile, and full of possibility. Against the odds, all 5 survived. From that moment forward, their home in Austin was never quiet again. Imagine a living room overflowing with bassinets, bottles lined up like soldiers, diapers stacked in towers taller than a toddler. Nights blurred into mornings and mornings bled into nights. It wasn't just parenting, it was survival. Ethan, balancing his career in construction management, often described the experience as organized chaos. Casey, a natural nurturer, threw herself into round-the-clock care with the kind of determination that only a mother of 6 could understand. And little Eliot, at just 4 years old, was suddenly thrust into the role of big sister to an entire squad of siblings. Word of the Miracle family spread first through local media and then across the country. They weren't celebrities chasing fame, they were simply a family trying to manage an impossible situation with grace. But their story had all the makings of a television phenomenon. Producers at TLC took notice. At a time when audiences were already fascinated by large families, think of shows like John and Kate Plus 8 and 19 Kids and Counting, the Joneses represented a new kind of wonder. They weren't just a big family, they were a big family born all at once, captured in real time as they navigated diapers, cribs, and the sleepless nights that seemed endless in those early years. When Quints by Surprise premiered in 2010, it didn't take long for viewers to connect. They laughed at Ethan's attempts to wrangle all 5 babies into a photo. They cried alongside Casey as she opened up about exhaustion and fear. They marveled at Eliot's patience as she adjusted to life as the eldest sibling in a house that rarely slowed down. But beneath the television spotlight, the heart of the Joneses' story remained the same. 2 parents against all odds, trying to give their children the love, stability, and sense of home they deserved. And looking back now, those early years feel almost surreal. The images of 5 babies lined up in matching outfits, of a kitchen filled with high chairs, of a minivan bursting at the seams with car seats. Those are the snapshots that define the Jones family in the public eye. But for Ethan and Casey, it was never about the spectacle. It was about survival, sacrifice, and the quiet joy of watching 6 children grow. And as the cameras rolled, capturing both chaos and tenderness, no one could have predicted just how much the Joneses' journey would change once the television lights went dark. By 2010, the Jones family was no longer just a household juggling bottles and diapers in the suburbs of Austin. They had become a television family. Quints by Surprise premiered on TLC with wide eyes watching, and suddenly Ethan, Casey, Eliot, and the 5 Quints were fixtures in living rooms across America. From the opening scenes, viewers were captivated. This wasn't the polished perfection of scripted television. It was raw, messy, and authentic. Cameras showed Casey at the kitchen counter, hair pulled back, exhaustion written across her face, while she somehow managed to keep bottles warmed and laundry folded. Ethan, often juggling his role as provider and father, would rush in from a long day of construction work to find the house buzzing like a beehive. And then there was Eliot, still a child herself, learning to share her parents with not 1, not 2, but 5 new siblings. The show offered a glimpse into what most people could only imagine. What does it really look like to raise quintuplets? Audiences leaned in as the family wrestled with the everyday logistics. Grocery shopping wasn't just an errand, it was a military operation. Taking the kids to the park required layers of planning, as though they were moving an army across enemy lines. Even bedtime became an event, with the Joneses shuffling cribs, lullabies, and endless requests for water. But woven into the exhaustion was something that kept people tuning in. Love. There was genuine warmth between Ethan and Casey, the kind that reminded viewers of the power of partnership. They teased each other, supported each other, and at times disagreed in front of the cameras, offering a portrait of marriage under stress that was far more relatable than glossy Hollywood love stories. TLC leaned into the family's authenticity. Unlike some reality TV productions that thrived on scandal or conflict, Quints by Surprise focused on the heart of parenting. It wasn't about perfect smiles or curated Instagram moments. It was about spilled milk, sibling squabbles, and parents doing their best. The Joneses' willingness to share their reality, unvarnished and true, made them feel like neighbors rather than celebrities. Of course, the public spotlight came with both blessings and burdens. On one hand, the family suddenly had opportunities they never imagined. They were able to share their faith, their journey, and their joys with an audience that reached far beyond Texas. Fans wrote letters of encouragement, sent gifts, and shared stories of how watching the Joneses gave them hope during their own struggles. But on the other hand, being a TV family meant constant scrutiny. Every decision, from how Casey disciplined the children to how Ethan balanced his work life, was picked apart online. Some viewers judged them for continuing with fertility treatments that led to the quintuplets. Others questioned their parenting choices. The Joneses, like many reality TV families, quickly learned that fame was a double-edged sword. Behind the scenes, production itself added to the strain. Filming schedules stretched long into days already overflowing with chaos. The crew had to be in the Jones home often, capturing everything from morning routines to bedtime battles. Privacy became scarce, and exhaustion deepened. Yet through it all, the family smiled, laughed, and opened their doors, determined to show the world that love could survive the storm. By the end of 3 seasons and 22 episodes, Quints by Surprise had become a beloved part of TLC's lineup. The network had successfully tapped into the fascination with big families that also fueled shows like John and Kate plus 8 and 19 Kids and Counting. But what set the Joneses apart was their simplicity. They weren't chasing headlines or fortune, they were simply trying to raise their kids. And that humility was magnetic. Still, no television run lasts forever. By 2011, the cameras stopped rolling. The family had given viewers a window into their world, but it was time to step back. Publicly, there was little drama surrounding the show's ending. Privately, it was clear that the Joneses craved what so many families take for granted: a normal life. For fans, the sudden disappearance was jarring. One moment, they were following the chaos of bedtime for 6 children under the age of 7, and the next, the family was gone from television screens. Viewers were left with questions. Did the show end because of ratings? Did the parents decide they'd had enough? Or was it simply the natural conclusion of a chapter that had run its course? In truth, it was a little of everything. Ratings had softened, but more importantly, Ethan and Casey knew their children were entering a new stage of life, one that deserved privacy. The novelty of 5 babies in matching outfits would inevitably fade, and what remained was the responsibility of raising individuals, not reality TV characters. So, the Joneses retreated from the glare of the spotlight. No spin-offs, no tabloid scandals, just a quiet exit. But the decision left fans with an enduring curiosity. After the cameras stopped rolling, what happened to the miracle family of Quints by Surprise? That question, still asked by devoted viewers more than a decade later, is where the story takes its most surprising turn. Because the end of the show was not the end of the Jones family's journey. It was only the beginning of a deeper, richer transformation that no reality program could ever truly capture. When the last episode of Quints by Surprise aired in 2011, it felt like the closing of a book. For fans, the story seemed to end abruptly, like the credits rolled in the middle of a sentence. But for the Jones family, life was just beginning in a new, quieter chapter, one no longer measured in Nielsen ratings or TLC contracts. Almost overnight, the cameras were gone. No crews camped out in the living room, no producers scheduling interviews or setting up lighting rigs. For the first time in years, the Jones home belonged solely to the Joneses. And that shift, away from the spotlight and back into the rhythms of private life, would prove to be both liberating and challenging. At first, there was an adjustment. For months, the kids had grown up with cameras hovering above their cribs and microphones hidden in the corners of the house. When filming stopped, silence filled the space where a dozen people used to stand. For Ethan and Casey, it was an almost surreal relief. Finally, they could parent without worrying about how their choices might look on screen. They can make mistakes without fear of being dissected by strangers online. But stepping away from television didn't mean life got easier. Raising 6 children was still a Herculean task. By 2012, Eliot was a grade schooler, and the Quints were entering toddlerhood, a phase known for tantrums, endless questions, and boundless energy. Multiply that by 5, and every day still felt like a marathon. Financially, the Joneses weren't immune to stress either. Reality TV had never made them millionaires. It had simply provided temporary support and exposure. Ethan continued working in construction management, while Casey leaned into her career in the medical field. At one point, she worked in a dermatology office before later joining Allergen Aesthetics. Their work lives were steady, but the expenses of raising 6 children, food, clothes, medical bills, extracurricular activities were constant and enormous. And yet, through all of it, the Joneses held together. Unlike many other reality TV families who fractured under fame, Ethan and Casey's marriage endured. They celebrated anniversaries, shared milestones, and leaned on each other when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm them. While tabloids speculated about divorce or dysfunction, the reality was far less dramatic. They were still a team. The children, meanwhile, grew away from the public eye. Fans occasionally caught glimpses of them through the family's blog or social media, but mostly the Joneses chose to keep their updates limited. This decision was intentional. Ethan and Casey wanted their kids to have as normal a childhood as possible, to go to school without being recognized from TV, to build friendships without the weight of celebrity. And in that normalcy, something remarkable began to unfold. The Quintets, once known only as a unit, the Quints, started to develop distinct personalities. Brooklyn leaned toward creativity and theater. Britton showed a knack for athletics and cheer. Jack found his place on the tennis court. Lila excelled in soccer, and Ryan built her own identity outside the shadow of her siblings. Each child carved a path that was uniquely their own. By middle school, the Quintets were no longer the 5 babies from TLC. They were individuals with hobbies, passions, and voices. And Eliot, their older sister, had grown into a young woman preparing for high school, carrying with her the quiet resilience of someone who had learned early to share the spotlight. Still, the memory of the show lingered. Even years later, fans would stumble upon old episodes online and wonder aloud, where are they now? Some assume the family must have gone through scandal or separation. Others guess they were quietly thriving. The truth, as is often the case, was somewhere in between. Life was neither picture perfect nor disastrous. It was ordinary, and that was the point. Casey once reflected in an interview that while the show had been a blessing, stepping away was necessary. Without the cameras, they could focus on raising kids, not characters. They could be parents first, not public figures. That choice may have cost them fame, but it gave them freedom. In the years that followed, their social media presence under the handle Jones Life Austin became the family's primary connection with fans. On Instagram, Casey shared snapshots of family hikes, birthday celebrations, and school achievements. These weren't staged TV moments. They were authentic glimpses into the kind of everyday life that had once seemed impossible when they were buried under diapers and night feedings. What became clear is that while the Joneses left television, they didn't leave behind their story. They simply chose to write it in private, away from the roar of the public eye. And in doing so, they proved something quietly radical, that a family doesn't have to chase celebrity to thrive. But perhaps the most stunning transformation came not in the parents' decision to step away, but in the children themselves. The Quintets who once fit in the palm of their parents' hands were now navigating adolescence, high school, and the quest for independence. And that journey, from babies in bassinets to young adults finding their way, would become the most surprising and heartwarming chapter of all.
As the quintuplets grew older, one of the greatest challenges they faced wasn't the chaos of diapers or the whirlwind of bedtime routines, it was identity. For years, the world had known them as a set. The Quints, 5 matching outfits, 5 names spoken in one breath, 5 little miracles always photographed side by side. But what happens when those children grow into teenagers, each with dreams and personalities that demand to be seen on their own terms? High school became the turning point. Suddenly, Brooklyn, Britton, Jack, Lila, and Ryan were no longer defined just by the miracle of their birth. They were athletes, artists, leaders, and thinkers, and they wanted the world, and even their classmates, to recognize them not as a package deal, but as individuals. Brooklyn leaned into creativity and performance. She found joy on stage, whether in school theater productions or art projects that let her imagination run free. She had always been expressive, and in high school, that spark grew into confidence. For Brooklyn, the challenge wasn't standing out, it was proving that she wasn't just one of five, but a voice that deserved to be heard for its own originality. Britton, on the other hand, discovered her competitive edge through athletics. Cheerleading and sports became her arena, a space where she could channel energy and strength. She wasn't content to fade into the background. Britton thrived when she had the chance to push herself physically and emotionally. Her journey reminded the family that being part of Quintuplets didn't mean moving in sync. It meant finding your own rhythm. Jack's path was different still. The only boy in the set, he carried the weight of being the sole brother to four sisters. For him, tennis became an outlet. On the court, he wasn't just the Quint brother, he was Jack, the athlete who could rely on his own instincts, his own swing, his own strategy. It gave him something precious, individuality forged through focus and discipline. Lila's story unfolded on the soccer field. With natural athleticism and determination, she proved herself among teammates who didn't care about her background, only about her ability to contribute to the game. Soccer gave her independence, a chance to show resilience in a way that had nothing to do with the cameras that once followed her every move. Ryan, meanwhile, charted a quieter path. She was thoughtful, introspective, and often underestimated. But in her own quiet way, Ryan showed strength, reminding everyone that individuality doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it's found in small acts of kindness, in creativity expressed on the page, or in friendships built carefully and deeply. For each Quint, high school wasn't just about academics or extracurriculars. It was about stepping out of a collective shadow. They had grown up in a world where strangers recognized them first as a group. Teachers, coaches, and peers often had to work hard to tell them apart, not just by names, but by personalities. The struggle was real. To be Brooklyn, the performer, not one of the Quints. To be Jack, the tennis player, not the only boy in the sect. In an interview with 4 Points News in 2024, Brooklyn captured the feeling perfectly. Sometimes people recognize us first as siblings, then as people. But high school has helped us show who we really are. That statement cut to the heart of what it means to grow up in a family that began as a miracle and then became a phenomenon. For the Quintuplets, individuality wasn't something to be taken for granted. It was something to be fought for. Their parents understood this deeply. Ethan and Casey knew the danger of raising children who felt defined only by their birth story or their reality TV past. They encouraged their kids to pursue separate interests, to explore their own passions, to resist the temptation of blending into a single identity. That intentional parenting gave the Quints space to flourish as unique individuals. But this journey wasn't without emotional weight. At times, each child admitted to feeling overshadowed, not just by the group, but by the expectations that came with being famous Quints. Friends would ask about the old TLC show, curious about what it was like. Teachers sometimes made jokes about their shared history. And while the family never denied their past, the kids had to navigate the balance of embracing it without being trapped by it. The public, too, had its reactions. When fans stumbled across the Jones family's Instagram, many were shocked at how grown up the Quints had become. Comments poured in. "I can't believe these are the same babies. They're teenagers now? Where did the time go? The transformation seemed almost unreal for viewers who remembered the days of matching onesies and bedtime chaos. For the family, though, it was a natural evolution, proof that time moves forward, even when the cameras stop rolling. What made this phase so powerful was the reminder that individuality is a universal quest. The Jones quintuplets may have had a unique starting point, but their journey mirrored the struggle of countless teenagers to be seen, to be valued, and to be known for who they truly are. Their story resonated not just because of the miracle of their birth, but because of the humanity of their growth. And in this quest, the Joneses revealed something profound, that the most shocking transformation of all wasn't the leap from infants to teens, it was the emergence of 5 unique souls, each carving a path of their own, each determined to be more than just a part of a headline from years past.
For all the focus on the children, the heartbeat of the Jones story has always been Ethan and Casey. Long before the miracle of quintuplets, before the cameras and the headlines, they were just 2 young people who fell in love and dreamed of a family. What has carried them through every twist and turn since then is not just luck. It's resilience, built day by day, choice by choice, together. Raising 1 child can stretch a marriage. Raising 6? That requires something beyond ordinary commitment. Ethan and Casey have faced every imaginable pressure: financial strain, public scrutiny, exhaustion so deep it bordered on despair. Yet somehow, through it all, their partnership has endured. Unlike other reality TV couples whose relationships crumbled under the glare of fame, the Joneses quietly strengthened theirs away from the cameras. Part of their resilience comes from balance. Ethan, with his background in construction management, carried the weight of providing financially. His days often began before sunrise, heading to job sites or tackling business responsibilities, then coming home to a house still alive with chaos. Casey, in turn, shouldered much of the daily caregiving, especially in the early years when the Quints demanded constant attention. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy, but it worked because they trusted each other's roles and respected the sacrifices being made on both sides. Their marriage wasn't without conflict. They argued, sometimes on camera, more often off. Casey has spoken about moments of feeling utterly depleted, questioning how she could keep going. Ethan has admitted the pressure of feeling like he had to be strong all the time, even when he was exhausted himself. But what made their dynamic extraordinary was their willingness to come back to the table, to apologize, to compromise, and to keep choosing each other. Faith, too, played a role in their resilience. Ethan and Casey have often pointed to their Christian beliefs as a source of strength, a reminder that their family was a gift, even when it felt overwhelming. That perspective helped them reframe struggles not as punishments, but as opportunities to grow stronger together. Then came the teenage years, a stage of parenting that tests even the most stable families. Suddenly, the Jones household wasn't filled with toddlers, it was filled with adolescents, each with opinions, emotions, and growing independence. The challenges shifted, less about diaper changes, more about navigating friendships, social media, and the pressures of high school. Yet again, Ethan and Casey adapted. Their resilience showed up in the little things. Family dinners where phones were put away so conversations could flourish. Weekend outings designed not just to keep the kids busy, but to remind them that family was their anchor. Even the way they handled discipline revealed their priorities, not simply to correct behavior, but to nurture character. The Quints themselves have acknowledged that their parents pushed them to be their best, while also giving them the freedom to explore. That balance, structure with flexibility, isn't easy, but it has helped the children grow into confident, grounded individuals. And then there was Eliot, the eldest. Her journey brought its own set of challenges. She was the firstborn, the one who remembered life before the Quints, the one who had to grow up faster than most. As she moved into young adulthood, Ethan and Casey worked to give her the attention she deserved, ensuring she never felt lost in the shuffle. Her milestones, graduations, achievements, new steps into independence were celebrated just as fiercely as the Quints. What makes the Jones family dynamic remarkable is its ordinariness. There are no grand scandals, no tabloid-worthy feuds. Their resilience has been built not through extraordinary events, but through the ordinary grind of life. Waking up, showing up, and choosing each other over and over again. In a world where so many reality TV families splinter under pressure, the Joneses' ability to remain intact is, in itself, extraordinary. Publicly, they've shared glimpses of this resilience. Anniversary posts celebrating decades of marriage, Instagram photos of family hikes and vacations, smiles that don't feel staged but earned. To outsiders, it may look simple. To those who know the challenges, it looks like triumph. And perhaps the greatest proof of their resilience is the way their children talk about them. In interviews, the Quints describe their parents not as overbearing managers or distant providers, but as steady, loving figures who give them room to grow. That's the kind of legacy that no reality TV contract can buy, the kind of influence that lasts long after the spotlight fades. So, what has kept Ethan and Casey together? The answer is deceptively simple. They never stopped seeing themselves as a team. Even in the darkest nights with 5 babies crying at once, or during the loneliest days after the cameras disappeared, they leaned on each other. They didn't let fame define them. They didn't let stress divide them. Instead, they let resilience shape them into something stronger. In many ways, this resilience is the unseen backbone of the Jones story. While the world marveled at the miracle of quintuplets, the true miracle was the family's ability to grow, to adapt, and to remain whole. And that wholeness, fragile, hard-won, and beautiful, became the foundation for everything that followed. Beyond the logistics, beyond the financial juggling and the noise of raising 6 children, there is something deeper that defines the Jones family: the emotional heartbeat. It is the quiet rhythm of love, doubt, joy, and fear that has pulsed beneath every chapter of their journey. For Ethan and Casey, the heartbeat was first felt in the sterile silence of fertility clinics, when every test result carried the weight of their future. It was heard again in the NICU, where 5 tiny cries reminded them that miracles can also feel terrifying. Over the years, it became the soundtrack of their lives, sometimes fast and frantic, sometimes slow and tender, but always present. As the children grew, that emotional heartbeat shifted into new territory. No longer infants, the Quints began to wrestle with questions that had no simple answers. What does it mean to grow up in the shadow of a television show? How do you make sense of being recognized for something you had no choice in, your birth? The Quints themselves, in moments of openness, admitted that being the Quints wasn't always easy. At birthday parties or school events, people would marvel at them as a group before asking their names as individuals. Friends would bring up the old TLC series, laughing about diaper blowouts or bedtime chaos, while the kids themselves had only faint memories of those early years. The show was a defining part of their family history, but it wasn't their own memory, it was everyone else's. That dissonance created a quiet struggle for identity. Brooklyn once described it as being recognized first as a sibling, then as a person. For a teenager already navigating the complex maze of self-discovery, that kind of labeling could feel suffocating. And yet, through the struggle, each Quint began to find resilience within themselves. There were moments of pride, too. When fans online left comments about how far they had come, or when old episodes resurfaced and people called them miracle kids, the Quints felt a strange mixture of gratitude and distance. Gratitude because they knew how precious their survival was. Distance because they wanted to be known for more than the way they answered the world. For Eliot, the eldest, the heartbeat had a different rhythm. She remembered life before the Quints, being the only child, the sole focus of Ethan and Casey's attention. Then, overnight, her world was transformed. At just 4 years old, she was asked to share her parents with 5 siblings. And not just any siblings, 5 babies who demanded nearly every ounce of energy her parents had. Her journey was marked by both sacrifice and strength. She grew into a young woman who often acted older than her years, developing independence not because she wanted it, but because she had to. And yet, Eliot never let go of her love for her siblings. In interviews and family posts, she spoke about them with pride, acknowledging the chaos but also the joy they brought. Ethan and Casey carried their own emotional weight. Ethan has admitted to feeling pressure as the rock of the family, even when he didn't have all the answers. Casey has spoken of the loneliness of motherhood, how even surrounded by children, she sometimes felt isolated, invisible, and exhausted beyond words. These feelings rarely made it onto television. The show captured funny moments and tender hugs, but it could never fully reveal the quiet tears shed in the middle of the night. Yet the heartbeat also carried hope. Family trips to the park where laughter rang louder than any worries. Milestones, first words, first steps, first days of school that reminded Ethan and Casey why they kept going. Holiday gatherings where the Jones home overflowed with warmth and noise, proof that their sacrifices were shaping a family that loved one another deeply. What makes the Jones family remarkable isn't that they are perfect. It's that they are deeply human. Their emotional journey has been one of learning how to live in tension between gratitude for their miracle and the exhaustion of raising it, between public fascination and private struggle, between being seen as a unit and craving recognition as individuals. And through it all, their heartbeat has never faltered. It has quickened in the hard times, slowed in the quiet moments, and steadied in the love that binds them together. In many ways, the emotional story of the Joneses is the one that cameras could never truly capture. It's not flashy, it's not scripted, it's the small, unseen moments that form the backbone of every family. That heartbeat continues today as the Quints navigate the turbulent waters of adolescence. Each time one of them steps onto a soccer field, tennis court, or theater stage, it beats a little stronger, a little prouder. Each time Ethan and Casey celebrate another wedding anniversary, it beats with gratitude. And each time Eliot returns home to her siblings, it beats with the reminder that family, complicated, messy, beautiful family, is the truest miracle of all. Today, more than a decade after their last appearance on TLC, the Jones family is no longer a household name splashed across television screens. But they have not vanished. Instead, they've chosen a gentler way of staying connected, with carefully curated windows into their lives, shared through social media. On Instagram, under the handle @JonesLifeAustin, Casey has become the family's unofficial storyteller. Her posts rarely feel like polished advertisements or reality TV-style productions. Instead, they're simple snapshots. A group photo after a soccer game, a video of Jack swinging his tennis racket in slow motion, a candid smile from Eliot as she hugs her siblings. Each post feels like an invitation into the ordinary, showing that the Miracle family has grown into a remarkably normal one. The response from fans has been a mix of shock and joy. Many who stumble across the account for the first time comment in disbelief. Wait, these are the same babies from Quints by Surprise? Others marvel at how tall, mature, and distinct the quintuplets look, comparing them to their memories of infants lined up in matching outfits. Some even admit to re-watching old episodes of the show just to relive the transformation. What stands out most is the tone of the updates. Casey rarely leans into nostalgia or fame. Instead, she focuses on the here and now, celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, and small victories. In one post, she shared a family hike, all 6 children marching ahead on the trail while she and Ethan trailed behind, taking in the moment. In another, she reflected on the chaos of family dinners, joking about how much pasta it takes to feed teenagers. These glimpses reassure longtime fans that the Joneses are doing well, even if their lives no longer play out on screen. But social media also serves another purpose. It allows the quintuplets to be seen as individuals. Photos highlight their differences: Brooklyn's flair for theater, Britton's athleticism, Jack's focus on tennis, Leela's soccer passion, and Ryan's quieter creative pursuits. For a family once defined by sameness, these updates are proof that the children are growing into unique young adults. The public presence of Ethan and Casey has shifted too. They are no longer the young parents overwhelmed by 6 kids that America met in 2010. Now, they're seasoned parents of teenagers, celebrating over 20 years of marriage. Posts marking their wedding anniversaries show the couple smiling, sometimes arm in arm, sometimes surrounded by their children. These images quietly defy the stereotype of reality TV marriages that crumble under pressure. Their relationship has endured and perhaps even strengthened away from the spotlight. Interestingly, the Joneses' decision to stay semi-private has made them even more intriguing. Unlike other reality families who launched spin-offs, YouTube channels, or product lines, the Joneses never tried to monetize their fame beyond the show. Their updates feel genuine, free of commercial intent, which only deepens the affection fans have for them. To many, they represent what happens when a family chooses authenticity over celebrity. And yet, their public presence still sparks reflection. Some fans wonder if the quintuplets will ever reclaim the spotlight as young adults, perhaps through interviews, college stories, or even their own projects. Others speculate whether TLC missed an opportunity by not revisiting the family in a "Where Are They Now" special. The fascination remains, not with scandal, but with the simple miracle of watching children grow. Every so often, old clips from Quints by Surprise resurface online. A scene of Casey juggling bottles or Ethan wrestling with 5 car seats circulates on TikTok or YouTube, prompting a new wave of nostalgia. Inevitably, the comments fill with the same questions. How old are they now? Are Ethan and Casey still together? What do the kids look like? Thanks to social media, answers are just a scroll away, though never in the overwhelming flood that comes with celebrity. The Joneses have found balance. They've chosen to share enough to satisfy curiosity, but not so much that it consumes their privacy. They've built a quiet corner online where their longtime fans can cheer them on while their children continue growing largely out of the public eye. It's a delicate dance, but one they've managed with grace. And perhaps that is the real story of their public presence today. It's not about numbers, ratings, or headlines. It's about authenticity. It's about showing the world that miracles grow best when they are nurtured quietly. For a family once defined by the roar of reality TV, the whisper of an Instagram update carries just as much meaning. As the quintuplets move through high school and beyond, the world will likely see less and less of them. But for those who remember the sleepless nights, the diaper mountains, and the 5 bassinets lined up in a row, the images shared now are enough. Proof that the story didn't end when the cameras turned off. Proof that resilience, love, and family can thrive long after the spotlight fades.
From the day 5 tiny miracles entered the world in 2009 to the moment the last television camera packed up in 2011, the Jones family's journey has been one of resilience, love, and quiet transformation. For some, Quints by Surprise was just another reality show. But for those who followed Ethan, Casey, Eliot, and the quintuplets, it was something more, a glimpse into the raw, unfiltered chaos and beauty of family. And now, more than a decade later, their story continues, even if it unfolds mostly away from the public eye. The Quints, once so small they could barely fill a parent's palm, are now teenagers carving out their own identities. They are athletes, performers, thinkers, and dreamers, each determined to be known for who they are, not just how they came into the world.
Eliot, the big sister who sacrificed so much of her childhood, has grown into a strong, independent young woman, proud of her siblings yet still rooted in her own story. Ethan and Casey too have evolved, no longer overwhelmed 20-somethings trying to keep their heads above water. They are seasoned parents who have weathered sleepless nights, public scrutiny, and private doubts, yet still stand side by side, committed to each other and to the family they built. Their marriage has become the quiet proof that love, when nurtured with patience and humility, can withstand anything. The public still wonders about them, still revisits the old episodes, still marvels at how those babies have grown. But the Joneses' decision to step back from fame, to share only glimpses of their lives on their own terms, has given them something far more valuable than celebrity: freedom. Freedom for their children to become individuals. Freedom to celebrate milestones without an audience. Freedom to write their own story, one that no network contract could ever script. And maybe that's the real lesson of Quints by Surprise. It was never about the spectacle of 5 bassinets lined up in a row or the chaos of bedtime with 6 children under 7. It was about what came after, the slow, steady building of a family, brick by brick, moment by moment, long after the spotlight faded. So what happened to Quints by Surprise? They grew. They endured. They became something television could never fully capture. A family bound not by fame, but by love. And now, we'd love to hear from you. Were you one of the fans who tuned in during those sleepless nights on TLC? Do you remember the diapers, the laughter, the chaos? Or are you just now discovering their story, marveling at how much can change in 15 years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to know what struck you most about their journey. If this story touched your heart, consider giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel, and joining us as we continue exploring the journeys of families who's captured the world attention. Because sometimes the most extraordinary transformations aren't the ones on screen. They're the ones that happen quietly, in the everyday heartbeat of home.